Mickey Maffei is a talented guitarist, singer, songwriter, and recording artist that I spoke with almost a year ago after the release of his album Hello My Brother. I'm very happy to be welcoming Mickey back to speak about his new album and his musical journey overall. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Really good. You've had a busy time.
Yeah, definitely.
And the big news for you as a musician is you have your album re-release happening.
Tip of my tongue, all of my words come out like venom. You like to think that you're so very special, but
That's awesome. And actually, you had some exciting news yesterday. 25 copies of your CD showed up to the door.
Oh, 100 copies of my CD, actually.
Wow! Holy!
Yeah,
I thought it was.
I have it all here. I ordered
Yeah.
it through. I guess I'll give a shameless plug. They said to tag them in things that you use their service for. So disc makers is what I used for the order this time around. Last album, I printed it up and burned all the discs myself, but I don't necessarily have time for that this time around. So
I remember doing that back in the day when, I mean, I'm gonna age myself even further than my picture does, but when CDs had first started being a thing for, I mean, they were out for a while, but like in terms of independent bands putting out CDs, we did that. We made the cover, we printed it off ourselves, we cut it and folded it and put it in the jewel case, you know. Man, that was like labor intensive.
yeah, it was a process, but it was fun.
Yeah. Well, that's part of it. You know, like I've talked to so many people about that idea of, you know, if you don't like what you do, then it's hard work. And if you love it, then it's just called passion, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I guess it was about 12 hours ago you posted your push to 1,000 subscribers contest.
Yeah. 100 copies of my new album, Symptoms of Lunacy, Dress the Elephant. It just came in the mail today while I was at work, and that's what I came home to. And for the first time in a long time, it feels like things are really going good in my life, and I'm just in a place of gratitude. I feel just very blessed, and not necessarily in the religious sense, but just, again, I want to go back to that feeling of gratitude for all that is my circumstance presently. So now that the sappiness is out of the way, I'm going to pivot to talking about my album. So Dress the Elephant will be out August 30th on all major streaming platforms. Wherever you stream, you can find it. How to buy it? I hope it goes without saying, but I don't expect anyone who's watching this to buy my CD. If you do like my music and you want to support it, awesome. What I will do is include my email in the description of this video, and you can reach out to me there or comment below. Have fun with it, I guess. And again, thank you to everyone who supported my content and continues to, and anyone who's new here. I hope that you enjoy your stay. And okay, bye.
That was fun.
Yeah, I tried to put a little bit of personality, I guess, into the video. It was just stupid goofiness, so.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun watching it. It was, I looked it up. It was 8 months ago that you and I chatted.
Okay.
At that point, your first album, technically, I know it, it's kind of like your second album and this is your first album, but they came this time around in opposite order.
The first one we could consider the 2020 go around of this, I could consider a demo. So that was my first album, sure.
Yeah. Fair enough. We're going to talk about that, of course, talking here. But so I'm referring to Hello My Brother, which you had released in June. It was the end of June 2023, June 30th, 2023.
Yeah.
Hello, my brother, just wondering how do you do? Hello,
Yeah. And so you and I talked a few months after that had come out. We had come into contact because of the Pentatonic Way, the PW improv jams
Yeah, yeah.
on X. Thanks. I will mention I posted shortly before we chatted tonight that I was going to be chatting with you, and in the Pentatonic Way guitar Twitter
Yeah, I don't
community,
know what it's technically called these days. X
right,
guitar.
there's a guy in that group who his name's Jesse, the delivery guy. He goes by UPS Love Machine. He has been posting steadily on his evolution as a guitarist. As soon as I posted that you and I would be chatting, right away he answered, "I'll definitely be watching that." I thought that was really cool. So I feel like you and I are both part of that community of guitarists, and I love having this connection as well.
Yeah, for sure. And there's so many great players there, of all different skill levels. And I genuinely mean it when I say that no matter what the skill level is, whether beginner, intermediate, advanced, wherever you may fall along that spectrum, I enjoy watching the playing and just progression of everybody, because if the players think that they might be worse than me, or worse than whoever they're comparing themselves to, um, I this is something else that I've kind of adopted for my own mantra, is that the only person you really should compare yourself to is the player or person you were the day before. And I
Right.
genuinely mean that. And so I guess one player that I'd like to shout out is a woman. Her name is Judy. She started out as a very beginner, and she posts herself playing chords, and every time I watch her, she gets better, and she always comments nice things in my videos. So I wanted to make sure to give her a shout out. One other player that I do want to shout out, I guess, is Mike, or Even Scored. I'm sure you've seen him. Oh my God.
He was the one in my mind. That's
Yeah.
amazing. It was honestly, I was as you were saying that, I was thinking, okay, so we're gonna give shout outs to some play, and he was the one in my mind. Yeah, I'd
Yeah,
love to include
he
that.
he's on like a country chicken picking uh kick lately. Stuff is That's above my pay grade, I guess you could say. But that goes back to what I mentioned earlier, is I don't necessarily compare myself to any of the players. There's proficiencies that every player has that, I'm sure when you watch it, there's something I joke around about often, is that there's always a 10-year-old kid on YouTube who can put anyone to shame.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think that you can watch people of all skill levels and draw inspiration from it. And that's something I heard about Randy Rhoads, is that when he was on tour with Ozzy, he would go get private lessons from random guitar teachers in different cities. And you think Randy Rhoads needed guitar lessons from some dude who's just teaching in wherever? There's always something you can learn from people who are at all different skill levels. They might have an approach or style that you never considered for yourself, but you might be able to draw from that. So I don't um, judge anybody for wherever they are along their musical journey, and I truly have an appreciation for people of all skill levels. And I don't say that to come off like I'm some upper echelon or anything like that. I definitely have my own insecurities about my own playing. So I hope it
I
doesn't come
don't
across that way.
I don't think anything about the way that you speak about music yourself or other people would make people think that. We all have something to learn, because it's like all learning actually, and this is coming from me as a teacher. Like, it's not a straight line from I don't understand to I understand. There are lots of side roads and different routes, and it's just it's a lot more interesting than just the straight line. From my perspective, what I saw was, and I told you this the last time we spoke, I saw this guy who I thought, man, this is a really good guitarist. And then I guess through the same format, I had learned about your album, and I was like, oh, he has originals. That's cool. You know, I didn't know at that time that you were a songwriter, a singer, and you do all the stuff yourself. And then we chatted about that. So now it's really nice, again, from my perspective, that we're talking pre-release now.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
you know.
sure.
So one of the things I'm going to play here in the episode, in our conversation, is your release announcement. It's like your life update and release announcement, which I guess is you're making into a tradition now, because you did it for the last album. You did it again the other day for this one.
The last couple of months, I've been going through, I guess you could call it a transitional phase. So some of the things that have been going on are I recently graduated from a Master's of Social Work program. I just landed my first job in the field as a therapist. So those are all anxiety-inducing, in a good way, accomplishments, if you will. And aside from that, I have been dealing with some social anxiety, which is potentially why I haven't really made a video of myself talking in some time now. I have been working on a lot of original music, and I am re-releasing an original project that I put out about 4 years ago. I re-recorded every song. A couple of new songs are going to be on it, and that will be titled Dress the Elephant. And I'm going to be releasing that rather at the end of this month. And I just wanted to post a quick little channel update and let you know that I'm still here, just busy as anything, entering a new phase of my life, finally getting started in a career. I'm still going to be making music and posting guitar videos as often as I can, but time is far and few between these days. But anyway, I hope that everyone's doing well, and I will see you on the guitar cover.
I think that's a really nice thing, because it's kind of like part of this idea how I see you not just as a songwriter performer, but also like building community with people through the pentatonic way, through the stuff that you post online, you know.
Down, down, not gonna let you keep me down. Now, now, give you a reason to hate me now. No more feeling.
I just mentioned that you're doing a push for 1,000 subscribers. Do you know what number you're at right now?
890 something. I don't know exactly.
I just checked before this. It's 894 as of right now.
Oh, okay, okay.
I guess you got a couple new subscribers today, so that'd be really awesome. I would love it if by the time people see this, by the time your album comes out, if it's at 1,000, that'd be even even better, you know?
Yeah, that's a pretty big goal in 2 weeks or just under 2 weeks. But hey,
You never know. You know,
stranger things have happened, right?
when you and I spoke 8 months ago, you were at like 200 and something.
Yeah, I have definitely made a pretty big climb on YouTube. So
Yeah. Well, that goes back to the reason I'm mentioning this is because looking at your YouTube channel alone, not to mention what you post on Twitter/X, whatever people want to call it. You know,
I've heard it referred to as Twix.
I love it. So it seems
And
appropriate.
and then they came up with that thing, the left Twix or right Twix, and I guess that's kind of fitting too.
Yeah. You have, as of today, 371 videos that you've posted on YouTube. And I think that's a big part of it. Like you post pretty regularly and it's very consistent, you know, like it's always about you playing the guitar, you showing a song that you've written, you know. One of the things that I was wondering about, I've talked to a lot of musicians about releasing music, and several musicians lately have been talking to me about how they prefer to release singles one by one with no specific intention of releasing an album. You know, maybe at some point it'll make sense for them to compile it and release an album. So I was going to ask you that question, but before I do, I will point out that A, you do post really regularly. So in terms of releasing a single, I'm not sure if that would necessarily feel necessary. But then also, I found something online today that I hadn't seen until today, which is PHONY Smile, I Like to Lie.
Okay.
You only see what I want you to, 'cause there's a side of me where darkness makes the rules. I love to say that everything's okay. Look, I'm smiling, embracing the day, but I like to lie.
So my question is, how do you see that that idea of releasing singles? Like, is that what PHONY Smile is? Or
So if I have a song idea and I feel particularly inspired or something, I'll just post a video. I guess as far as singles are concerned, as opposed to albums, I think it's just in the current climate of the music industry, and not that I think I'm a heavy hitter in the music industry or anything like that, but I think it's easier to release singles. It's more engaging, I guess, if you're trying to build a following. But the thing I like about putting out full-length albums is you can tell a little bit more of a story. And like you had said, there's not necessarily um, a plan when people release singles. It's kind of maybe they'll put it together into an album later, but uh, for me, storytelling is a huge part of my writing, and I think that that's best accomplished through more songs, because a song is kind of a snapshot into one set of emotions or feelings, usually, unless it's the greatest story ever told. There's plenty of songs like that, but um, I think that with an album, I can kind of go through that full range of emotions, the good and the bad, as opposed to just singles might, like I said, be snapshots. I don't know if that makes any sense.
it does. I can see how. In fact, I spoke with a singer-songwriter last week, Demi Michelle Schwartz, who she goes by just Demi Michelle for her music, and she is super organized, which I don't know about you, but for me, when I write songs, it's like what comes to me at the moment, you know? And then if I were later, well, what I have done later is, you know, when I look at the song stack for, let's say, a CD that I'm going to release or something, a playlist, something, I sort of think of it afterwards. Whereas she sort of planned out her three releases, like an EP and two albums, that she sort of planned out how that would progress. I was like, wow, you know, without knowing the specifics, you don't know 3 years in advance or 2 years in advance what song you're going to write, but you kind of know how the arc goes, you know?
Yeah.
So it is possible, but it sounds like the way that you would approach it or would see it would be similar to the way that I think of it, is like that. I just kind of write them as they come, you know?
Yeah. I don't
So,
necessarily have a plan when it's kind of just whatever comes to me. And usually it'll start with a riff or a melody, like not necessarily vocal melodies, something I'll hear in my head, and then I worry about translating it all later and then writing the words after I have the music or some form of that. Sometimes I'll write lyrics and try and squeeze it into a song, but that's a little bit harder.
right. Yeah, I mean, that brings me to two questions that I had sort of noted down, but they're coming together right now. Which one is like you and I talked about this the last time we spoke, is like the influences that make up your sound, you know? And so when I hear an influence in somebody's playing or singing or whatever, I don't see that like theft. I see that like, and it's just part of the process, is that we take in all these influences and we make something new from it, right?
Hmm.
Is there, let's say, just to keep it into a manageable scope, like for Dress the Elephant, which is the album that's coming out on August 30th, was there any point in recording that where you felt like, you know what, I'm gonna do a little homage to someone here, like I'm gonna do a little Randy Rhoads lick, or I'm gonna do a little Zach Wild? Did you ever do that?
No, not really. It's just
Okay.
kind of I play whatever I think fits the riff or the song.
Mhm.
Um, Sometimes it might come across as like totally borrowing from someone specific, but I never go into it with like the thought process of being, I want this song to sound like a Randy Rhoads solo. Um, I mean, I have done stuff like that in the past, but it's at least for this project, it wasn't necessarily something that I was intentional about.
Yeah, that's why I was specific about the way that I asked that, because I know you have done stuff where you played a certain thing in the style of, and you said as much, you know, which I think
Yeah.
is super cool, because what you were showing was your playing ability in terms of understanding their style, and then the tone stuff that comes with the way that you attack the strings, but also the equipment that you use, the gear and stuff.
Hmm.
So that's why I was careful to say that, because I know you have done that, and I think it's super cool. Like, it sounds like, well, not it sounds like, you just said you write the songs as they come to you, and then you sort of flesh them out in whatever way feels natural to you, right? So then you're sitting there and you have your list of songs, in this case 12 songs for Address the Elephant, right? How much do you consider the song stack, like the order of the songs, to tell an overarching story?
I put a lot of thought into that. Um, I messed around with the order a bunch of different times. I burnt a bunch of different blank CDs and kind of would drive around with it in my car and figure out what felt the best until I settled on this arrangement of the song. So I definitely was thoughtful about that.
Okay, so that being said, what would you say would be the major factor that would help you to decide that? Would it be like just the feel of the song overall, or like do you consider, I don't know, the lyrics? Or like for me, for example, I heard the last like four songs. This is just an example, because of course it goes all the way through, right? But Like, okay, so I'm looking at Hell on Earth. Holy cow, the vocals in that song. Wow. Like, well
Thank you.
done, man. That was
Thank
awesome.
you.
Then I heard Darkness Interlude. I was like, ooh, that's a change of speed, you know? The Evil Inside of You. Then Sunshine has a different feel, and like that interplay between the sort of quote unquote happy sounding music and then the lyrics, you know. And then after that is Done the Right Things. And I really felt like, man, that I assumed, or I guessed rather, that you had thought about the stack there, because I was like, wow, that it really, if you listen to them one song after the other, it really does take you for a bit of a ride, you know?
Yeah, that was exactly my intention, was to add a little bit of dynamics. That's something I've really started exploring, I guess, and working on, being conscious
Mhm.
of, is not just having 5 songs in a row of just in your face metal, and then uh followed by the rest of the album is more classic rock, and it's not boring, but I guess by comparison it would be a totally different vibe. So I tried to be conscious of that and uh, come up with something that, like you said, took you for a little bit of a ride, and brought a little bit of a dynamic element to the full picture.
Okay, so you said you started to experiment with that. We were just now talking about the macro picture of that, like the overall song stack, but I got a really strong sense of that within the songs as well. Like, you just mentioned Done the Right Thing. Is that the one? I think that's the one where you, before you start the solo, it's like the whole thing stops and it's just the guitar by itself.
All my life, but I'm still trying.
Yeah. So for me, I was like, it was kind of like building, 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 and then all of a sudden went, and then the guitar came with the shaker. Is like, wow, I didn't see that coming, you know. So it literally made me like kind of jump a little bit, but not in a bad way. I mean, like it
Mhm.
really um took me for a surprise, you know, like a little bit like a roller coaster feeling. You know?
Yeah.
So was okay, so something like that, was that just what you heard in your head at the moment, or did you think, okay, I'm gonna give him a bit of a start here?
It was mostly what I heard in my head, what I wanted to the piece to accomplish, and I it's good feedback to know that mission was accomplished, I guess.
Mission accomplished. Totally, yeah. I have to say that song. So I'm starting kind of at the end here because I'm starting at the last song on the CD on the album. But when I heard that, especially the solo part, do you know a band from Canada called Harem Scarem?
No, I'm not familiar.
No. They, I mean, they've been around since the 80s, actually. I know of them because my band used to open for them. Like they already had a record deal and we didn't.
Hmm.
So we used to be like the opening act for them sometimes, and things like that. Pete Lesperance is the guitarist for that band. I was curious if you had heard them, because that way of approaching a solo was very much what Pete would do. They have a song called No Justice from, I think it was their second album. They have like 25 albums, but I'll play here in this episode the sample just of how he goes into his guitar solo. I'll probably just play the whole guitar solo because it's awesome.
Okay.
That's interesting for me. So maybe what it is that you guys share some sort of influence that's somewhere in your heads, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, that's certainly
How
possible.
well, I mean, Paul McCartney's talked about that, writing songs that somebody later said it sounded just like such and such song, and that was completely the furthest thing from his mind. Where that's where it starts to get complicated, right? Like how those synapses connect, you know?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Um,
I had a discussion on Twix recently where
I'm gonna start calling it that. I think that's awesome.
yeah, yeah, where someone only the host, I don't know if you're familiar with them.
Yep.
They yeah, so for anyone who doesn't know, he would put on this music showcase where he gave indie musicians a platform. Awesome
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
But anyhow, he posted something along the lines of what's an experience from your childhood that you didn't realize was messed up until you got older. And we spoke about how I would go play in this creek that was basically a toxic waste dump. And he relayed to me that he also had a place called the Creek. So it kind of brings me to that, I guess, that way of thinking that there's bound to be overlap in the human experience, and I guess what makes it unique to the person is their own voice and that slight spin that they put on it.
I actually do think it connects back. I think that's a really good example. I read a quote from Carole King. She was talking about her songwriting, and she said that one of the things that she loves to do in her songwriting is to bring it back home, meaning she likes to bring something in that she knows will be relatable to some people who listen to music, you know?
Sure.
So in her case, it's possibly a more conscious thing, you know? But I do think there are these connections, and that's why when I listen to your songs, I love what's different about it that I never would have thought of that. But I also love those moments when I go, that's totally what I would have done. That's awesome.
Yeah,
It's
sure, sure.
different connections. I have to go a little bit off script here because it just occurred to me. I was thinking about you. I think it was yesterday. I was on like Facebook and I saw this post. I actually tagged you when I reposted it. It was Dawkins because I know you're a fan of George
Oh,
Lynch and Dawkins.
definitely.
It totally made me think of you because I know you're a George Lynch fan. And I saw this video. It was a little clip of Dawkins with one of their earliest formats. And so I was like, oh, this makes me think of Mickey.
Well, I appreciate that. There's definitely worse things that I can invoke a thought of. So
one of the things I'm interested in is sort of connected ideas. The inspiration for the songs that you wrote here, which was back in 2019, 2020. So that's one of my questions. But then also, how might that have changed in the re-release? Because I know you've reworked some of the songs, and I'm curious, like, how much you think writing and recording "Hello, My Brother" has influenced how you approached this album the second time around. I guess let's start with inspiration for the songs that you wrote in 2019, 2020. To what extent did you listen to those songs or re-record those songs and feel the same? Or to what extent did you feel like you really needed to change it around because you didn't feel the same?
so okay, I guess there's one song that's a perfect example of this, and that would be Sunshine.
Okay.
So in 2019, 2020, it was kind of directly after my dad had moved away to Florida, and that's what that song is about.
Okay.
Florida being the Sunshine State. Um, it was very raw and fresh, and I had a lot of negative emotions. Whereas now, I've kind of accepted it is what it is, kind of thing. So I have a little bit of a different feeling towards where my headspace was then as opposed to where it is now. I actually tried to rewrite the lyrics to be something entirely different. I like the riff and everything, so I wanted to keep it, but it did feel disingenuous to rewrite it. So I ended up keeping the same lyrics. I changed the format a little bit, but everything is pretty true to what I did way back when, 4 years ago. And
Right.
so I guess that would be a pretty good example of how a song could have evolved from back then. And then it, a lot of what I wrote about then, it's a lot of themes about mental health and mental illness, and whether it's personal experience or just something that I've observed in someone close to me.
Mm.
And I think that those are, I like to refer to them as universal truths. So while they might evolve, mental health is something that will be ever present in everybody's life to some extent. So those songs that are really heavily written about mental health, like Another Pill, that's about needing to medicate to go to sleep.
Yeah, I'm a freak, so unique. Bang my head against the wall. Nostrils flare, breathing air. Suffocate underneath it all.
Out of My Mind is about feeling like you're going insane, and there's themes of certain types of ideation in that song. And so
I know you can hear me. I've opened my eyes. I want to be free from deception and lies. Pictures laughing at me as they
so that one's, I guess, a little bit heavy in the content, but those things are still experiences and feelings that are fresh as they were back then, just because of the nature of them. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. It actually created a new question, of course, because that's how my brain works. But because I'm looking at, I'm thinking about Another Pill. You just mentioned that. And when I heard that song, there's a moment in there where you say, I close my eyes and count to 10. And that made me think about Anxious Mess, which might sound funny, but Anxious Mess, you explained to me the last time we spoke that you were referring to the 3-3-3 rule, right?
The 5 4 3 2 1 method, you like, it's basically using your senses as a way to decrease an anxious feeling. So it's like things that you see, things that you smell, things that you can taste, touch.
Is right, because in the lyrics you say finally at one.
Yeah.
So that made me wonder, like, maybe I was thinking of it backwards. I was wondering if the re-release, the re-recording and slight rewriting of this album was influenced by Hello My Brother, but actually now I'm realizing maybe the writing of Hello My Brother chronologically might have been influenced by the writing of this album originally.
Yeah, definitely. Lyrically, at the very least. Musically, I think that it was a bit of both. It influenced Hello My Brother initially, and then my approach to Hello My Brother influenced the re-recordings of these songs.
Yeah. I, yeah, wow, that's really interesting. It makes me think that more people should re-release, re-record and re-release stuff because it really gives it a whole new life. You know what I mean? Like I've heard of musicians doing this before, but I never thought of it quite that far. Like how your life moving back into this thing and reflecting on it could change it. You know? So I wanted to ask you about your vocals. So I already know the answer to the first question that I was going to ask about how much do you plan out your harmonies? Because it's what comes to you at the moment. It's what feels right. And then like the layering, the devil inside of you.
The devil's deal is not for me. He'll never take me with you. My soul is not for sale, so don't even bother. In life you get what you pay for. Well, I've only got $1. You will not change me. You won't succeed.
When you do that whole like choir kind of sort of like it's as rich and full as though you had like 20, 30 people singing in there. I know you did that in at least one of your songs on Hello My Brother as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that that's just like, okay, it feels right at the moment, so that's what I do. I'm curious though about like some of the notes that you hit, like in Another Pill, there's it's like Rob Halford kind of level. And I know you've done covers of Judas Priest songs.
I need another pill to help me sleep through the night.
Have you had any vocal training? Like you have a lot of vibrato in your voice. You know, I've taught choir classes, so you know, you have a lot of vibrato in there. You're just breath control, the way that you hit those notes. So, do you have vocal training in your history?
I do not. No. I guess what I
Wow.
will say is my dad also sings, but he didn't really get any vocal training himself. So he showed me a couple things, but minimal training, if anything. If you want to even consider it training, we sang together. We used to play in a band together, and we would drive around listening to Judas Priest in the car throughout my childhood.
And
I
you singing
have,
along with it.
yeah, me singing along with it. So that was my vocal training.
That's amazing. Rob Halford, if he ever saw that, he would just, I'm sure he would love that because
Well, that means a lot. I sure hope so.
yeah, I think I could see you singing.
In your honor.
Wow, that'd be awesome. I love that song. Actually, there's a group of my friends from like my high school days that if you did that, I know they'd be listening to it.
I'll put it on the to-do list for sure. That's one of my
That's
favorite
awesome.
songs, especially the Unleashed in the East version.
Nice. Yeah, I'll go back and listen to different versions of it. Do you think you're playing in terms of not just your guitar playing, because that's, you know, always growing and evolving, but I mean like how you approach all of it, the recording of bass or however, like you program the drums, is that correct?
Yeah, I use Easy Drummer. Well, I write the songs in Guitar Pro, and
Hmm.
then I will go into Easy Drummer 3, which is what I used for this album, and edit it further from there. I'll export it as a MIDI file from Guitar Pro, and then I humanize it, is what they call it in their software, and it
Hmm.
unquantizes it, so it's a little bit more realistic. I'll drag the snare hits, and they have where you could have a center hit, rather a rim shot, an edge hit, all the above, and I'll go in and move the snare depending to various different types of hits, so it's not just the same exact snare sound the whole time. So it's a little bit of a process, but and there's definitely people who are way more proficient at drum editing than I am, but that's just my personal approach.
You know, it's a whole different skill. You know, were you thinking of it that closely 4 years ago when you first recorded Dress the Elephant? You know, and if so, do you feel like you've improved your skill on that?
Yeah, definitely. When I first recorded this 4 years ago, I actually just would export the wave files from Guitar Pro, and the drums sounded not that good. I guess I'll describe it as. So there's definitely market improvements there, in my opinion. I guess that's up to the listener to really make an opinion on. But anyway, regarding bass as well, yeah, I definitely improved just naturally, I guess, over time. So I try and write it more in line with the drum parts, and sometimes there's counter rhythms and melodies going on with the guitar, whereas a few years back, I would have probably just had the bass mimicking the guitar lines
Right.
more closely.
Yeah. I remember clearly back in my earliest recording days, I was studying recording engineering. There's a school in Toronto called the Harris Institute for the Arts. And back then, we were in the original location of that school. They didn't have a developed recording studio at the time. So we had a mobile recording unit outside the school called Comfort Sound, owned by Doug McClement, which some Canadian musicians would know the name. I remember sitting and I played on our first demo, I played a lot of the instruments. So my drummer came in and he played his parts and I recorded that. And then he would record me playing some of the bass parts and the keyboard parts and the rhythm guitar parts. And then we'd bring in our lead guitarist to play the solos. And I remember him like stopping a recording quite abruptly one time when I was playing the keyboard parts and I was just playing basically what you just said. Like my piano chords or string sound chords were just following the guitar. And he's like, dude, no, you have to think like two different musicians here. You can't be the same musician on two different instruments, you know?
Yeah, and another thing that I've started doing with the bass is using like thirds or fifths as like passing notes and accidentals, and kind of working in a little bit more walking bass line to kind of get a chord, at least in a very basic triad, out with the bass as I'm going about it.
I find the 1-5-8 works really well, you know? So you do like a C G and then a high C, for example, you know. Okay, the reason I even asked to that is because when I was listening to Oh Lord, at the end of that, you have this really cool ending. And I'm not sure how you came up with that, but it's super cool how you end it. It's just like, oh Lord, and then it just keeps repeating that and then just stops. If you listen closely, there's a picked bass in there that just
Yeah.
kind of comes out for the first time really clearly. And for me, that was like a really cool moment musically.
Well, thank you.
Oh Lord, oh Lord.
That was a cool moment. How did you come up with that ending? You just kept it
It was
going and went, that sounded cool.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure the bass line was what I played underneath the main riff. Um, and I just kept it going. And then at the end there, I am fairly certain that I like seventh chords. And I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
that I'm doing some seventh chord stuff on the guitar there at the end over it.
Yeah, I thought it was gonna fade more or something. I don't know what I thought exactly. It surprised me how the ending came.
He tells me that I'm no good, and oh Lord, he lies to me, he's deceiving, wasting time spent.
We're talking about the songwriting, we're talking about the inspiration and the technique, but we haven't talked specifically about the production style. You know, there are a lot of moments where I just thought it was well produced, and that's all you as well.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Sunshine. the guitar solo in that, I thought it was well played. It was well placed, like playing for the song. But
Hmm.
the way that you use the wah pedal in there, and there was like a moment where you hit sort of I guess I would call it the climax of the solo, and it really overdrives. I don't mean in terms of distortion on the guitar, like it really punches if it was going to tape, it would be red on the meter, You really you didn't overdrive on the recording.
Yeah.
Was that on purpose?
Yeah, I approached that solo pretty intentionally. Um, that the way I ended that solo was different than the original version of that. I changed the riff to be, I guess the word I would use to describe it is heavier, at the end of that song. And yeah, I wanted it to kind of really be a build and kind of have a little bit of oomph to it. So
Blam. So, once again, blammo, the mission accomplished. Because I actually made a note of almost exactly what you just said. Because it's like it was a huge build, and by the end of it, it was like I was just going, how far is he going to go with this? Like especially on digital recording, it's not actually that easy to do anymore. Analog recording used to be a lot easier to just slightly distort for effect. Whereas digital recording, it's harder to do because it just clips.
yeah, yeah. It's tough, but what I do, I guess, to remedy that is I will go in, and if the track is too close to the limits,
Hmm.
I'll decrease the amplification volume on the track itself by a little bit. I just used Audacity to record all this, so it's pretty simplistic software. It's just free, whatever software. I
Hmm.
recommend it to anyone who wants to get started in recording. It's a good entry point, at least in my opinion.
It felt, again, it was like a roller coaster feeling. It was like when the car feels like it's going to go off the tracks, but then it doesn't. That's what it felt like.
Yeah, yeah. And one other thing I'll say, to speaking kind of to what you were just saying, is when I went in to re-record everything, I play everything all the way through. I don't just chop pieces of stuff together. I
Yeah.
mean, some things I will do that for. I'll admit to it. I'm not a perfect musician or anything. Like a bass track, I can kind of get away with it a little bit.
Hmm.
But for solos, what I did was I recorded video of every take I did, so that way I could post it for content, whatever. But also just to kind of document the recording process for myself, and who knows, 10 years from now I could look back and say, oh, that was fun. But that's what I did there, if I forgot exactly what notes I did or anything. So it was a little bit of both of that. But so yeah, if I did nail a perfect take and I messed up on the recording side of things, it was incredibly frustrating because it meant I had to re-record a video and everything. So
Yeah. On the same, I can see how that'd be super frustrating because I mean, even just doing this podcast, there are moments where I remember one of my earliest episodes. I spoke with a friend of mine in Toronto who's a video editor. We were talking about music in movies and stuff like that. Spoke for like an hour. It was amazing content that he talked about. And then when I went to check my recording, it hadn't recorded the sound.
hmm,
It's like, how many times does that happen where you get the perfect take and then you go to the engineer, okay, cut, that's it. And he goes, dude, I forgot to hit record.
yeah, yeah.
in your answer just now, actually, you touched on two things. So the video part, that's cool. I really wish I had done that back in the day, because now there are songs that I would love to go back with today's technology and re-record those songs, but I don't remember what I did. How did I get that sound? So I think you're smart to do that. You and I chatted back and forth in text about Dress the Elephant, the song, because that is probably the most drastically transformed song from the 2020 version to today. So I'm curious, how did you decide that? Like, why did you decide to change it so much?
Uh, no real reason other than it was what I felt at the time.
Wow.
There's the elephant standing in the room, making it look so nice, drowning in perfume. You like to think that you're so very special, but
I was just jamming one day and I thought, oh, maybe the lyrics might translate well to this riff. And then I built a song around it and I changed up some of the words, I think. I'm fairly certain. And that was pretty much my approach to that. No real game plan. I will say most of the songs that I write, sometimes I'll sit on them for a while, but usually when it comes to recording and finalizing everything, I guess, in terms of parts and lyrics, it usually gets done pretty quickly within a day or two. I find that if I sit on something too long, then it takes some of the edge or feeling out of it if I overthink it. I used to really overthink everything, and I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, if that wasn't obvious already. But I've tried not to be that way anymore. And
Yeah, I tend to, I don't think there's a right or wrong way, but I tend myself personally to agree with you, because as much as it might make the notes perfect, it's like quantizing your drums. If it's perfect, it doesn't feel emotional, it doesn't feel authentic. And I think authenticity is probably, at the end of the day, the most important thing about the difference between what I like in a song and what I don't like in a song.
yeah, for sure, for sure. I agree with that as well. Um,
Yeah.
And I think that with rock and metal, especially, maybe not so much the technical metal that's like really fast paced and crazy technical ability required to play it like neoclassical shred, but with the rock influence stuff, I think that subtle imperfections and gives it a little bit of an edge and is what makes me like it so much. It's not necessarily trying to be perfect, but just get an emotion across.
Yeah, I felt that, having listened to Hello My Brother and Dress the Elephant, I felt that more in this one, especially like, for example, in Done the Right Thing, you have like that guitar intro that you do, and the word that I wrote down when I was listening to it was playful. It just feels like you're just having fun playing the guitar, you know? And by the way, there's a microphone or it's plugged into an amp, or, you know, and then it goes into this song that I also really love. But that intro part, was that what it was? Like, were you just, whatever I put to recording here, that's what it is? Is that how it felt for you?
Yeah, so there's actually that intro lick or whatever you want to call it was a video that I posted on Twitter or Twix. I guess we could refer to it as that for the sake of the conversation. But yeah, I posted it there initially, and it just so happened to be in the same key, E major. I play in a half step down, so for anyone worried about it, I guess technically it would be D sharp or E flat major, but
Do you
uh
tune to that, or you just do the Eddie Van Halen thing and just play where it is?
no, I play in E flat. I grew up on Alice in Chains, which is another huge influence. Stevie Ray Vaughan, that's kind of where they were, so it's just easy for me to stay there. And my one main guitar is a Floyd or the Ibanez equivalent, whatever it's called, the Edge Zero Bridge, and tuning between standard and E flat on a floating tremolo system is not a an easy task. So E
It's just
flat.
not worth it live. Just go
Yeah,
for it.
just stick where you are.
Yeah.
That was a video I recorded of me. It was pretty much just noodling around, just using some different techniques that I was working on at the time, and I posted it on Twix. And then I thought, oh, this might sound cool to go before this song. And then I had the lick fade out, and then I recorded the part after the acoustic guitar came, and then I played a different solo. It's a different take. That little intro solo with the rest of the band, that's an entirely different take, but I just had the intro lick fade into it, and then I did a volume swell and came back, and then I blended the two tracks together. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. That's very cool, actually. I have done that in the past. I think of a song that my drummer wrote years ago that he and I recorded called Dirt. And it's about feeling like that, you know. It was really heavy. And at the end of it, we thought we don't want people to walk away feeling that heavy, you know. So my friend's mom is Finnish, and she had these old recordings of this Finnish music. She had like a 45 in Finnish. And it started off with these strings, and it was exactly what you just said. We were in the key of E, and the song happened to be in E. So we're like, hey, if we fade in that 45, sampling before there was sampling, and it was totally just what you just said. Like we just sort of faded it in to make two totally unrelated things match, and it gave a great feeling to the song. And you do it with something that you recorded initially, but in the opposite, where you started off with that feeling and then go into your song. So it totally makes
Yeah.
sense to me.
All my life I've done the right thing. Not too much that's done for me. Yeah, I've been scared of taking chances. Nothing good's ever come for free. Well, I guess there's a sign that says when the sky is made of candy, wanna reach up and take.
What is the meaning for you of Dress the Elephant?
So it's a play on words,
Mm-hmm.
address the elephant in the room kind
Yeah.
of thing. And uh, at the time in 2020, I think that mental health was coming to the forefront for a lot of people just because of
Mm-hmm.
the world circumstance. I don't think I need to explain beyond that. Um,
Yeah.
but that was the intention of what that means, dress the elephant. Um, so dressing the elephant is basically like bringing awareness to an issue that's there that
Right.
maybe no one wants to talk about, or no one knows how to talk about, and just kind of facing that and putting it out there.
I didn't actually, to be honest, I didn't put together the two things being 2020, but I did think it was address the elephant, like the elephant in the room. You and I spoke about this before, and recently it seems to have come up a lot. I spoke with a guy named Michael Botte of the Michael Botte Band. He has a hashtag that he uses in everything that he posts. It's music is my therapy. And I just thought that was really interesting, that idea of music is my therapy, because at least 90% of the people I talk to who write songs, that's kind of where it comes from, is like, this is really therapeutic for me to write this stuff, you know?
Definitely the case with myself. Sure. Of course, there's happy music. Like I could go listen to I've Got Sunshine on a Cloudy Day and be
Yeah.
put in a good headspace, but that's not necessarily what I gravitate towards. So yeah, I don't necessarily, not that I don't write music when I'm happy, but it's when I'm sad is when I feel compelled to, like you were saying.
Yeah. I might have asked you before, what I like to ask at the end of every chat that I have with someone, is there a question that I didn't ask you that you wish I had asked you, or something that we could have talked about?
I mean, I know I've said it before to you through private chats, but I think that you're very thorough, and I appreciate the effort and attention to detail and research that you do into uh, all of the artists that you interview. I think you do a fantastic job. So I don't think that there's necessarily anything that I wish you would have asked. I think it covered all the bases. I spoke about the message and intention behind the music and my approach to it. So I think it was all encompassing. Um,
Wow.
I
Oh,
I I do have one question for you though, if that's okay.
yeah.
So when we were texting before and kind of setting up the logistics of this, you did say that you had a song that you gravitated toward. Um, and I'm just curious what song that is and uh, maybe what about it drew you in.
Okay. I'm glad you asked that, because actually it was in my mind when I was listening. I will mention, first of all, Ring the Alarm, which isn't the one that I would pick as like my pick, but I just thought that was such a cool little interlude moment for you to include. You know, I think a lot of musicians record stuff like that, but then don't include it in the stuff that they put out. So I thought that was, um, I don't know if the word brave works, but I just thought that it was very interesting choice, and I really appreciated that. So thank you for that.
That's my homage to Metallica's Blackened. I recorded a guitar solo and for that, and then I reversed the entire track and played it backwards. So that was
Oh, okay.
and then I dubbed in organ and like synth stuff over it and guitar and bass and just a kick drum kind of going through.
I love that. Again, it's kind of like those Easter eggs in a TV show or something like that. You know, that's cool that it was all done that way. That explains actually why it sounds so like eerie kind of thing. It's pretty cool. I really like that. The Devil Inside of You has been kind of on repeat since you shared the songs with me. Mostly because of those harmonies that I mentioned earlier. I just think it's not just knowing how hard that is to do in terms of how much time it takes to re-record and add in new vocals and change your timbre and distance from the mic and all that kind of stuff. It's just a really full, like, I guess I would use the word beautiful in terms of the harmonies themselves. That one really stuck with me.
The other day I walked past the church, tempted to go inside, wash all my sins away, swallow my pride. But I am not a praying man, nor do I believe in God. Does that mean I'm damned to hell? I sure hope not. Never sign that dotted line, no matter your
Darkness Interlude is the one that I'd have to say. can't stop listening to it. I just thought it was really beautiful playing. And just when I thought either was going to end or get boring, you went into like a 3/4 time chord thing. Like something that I never would have thought of adding that in that moment. But for me, that like took it over the top.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. That was, yeah, I revisited the original version of that and changed the arrangement up a little bit. And I played that, if you could see behind me, I think I'm pointing at it, this Explorer, the Epiphone Explorer with
Yes, yeah,
the chicken mask on it. That's what I recorded that with.
Thank you. I I appreciate what you said about my preparation and all that stuff as well. Honestly, I do. It means a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
On that note, there's the question that I wish I had asked you, because you and I have chatted about this in text, but not recorded. The picture of you with Zakk Wylde and the picture of you and your dad with Ozzy Osbourne at very different times. What are the stories behind those?
Sure. So the story, I'll go in chronological order. So the story with the Ozzy picture is it was in 2001, I think, the Down to Earth album. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. Yeah, Ozzy was doing press at a local place that's no longer there. It was called Vintage Vinyl. It was a record shop in Forge, New Jersey. And that place had a bunch of meet and greets. Famous musicians from all different kinds of genres would go in there and do signings and the meet and greet thing. And so my dad brought me, and I was one of very few kids there. So it was mostly older guys. They were all drinking in the parking lot, tailgating like it was a concert to go meet Ozzy. By the time we got inside and we finally worked our way up to Ozzy, Ozzy's eyes kind of lit up because I wasn't just a sweaty, drunk, middle-aged man. I was a little kid. And so he put his hands out like a mall Santa and picked me up and put me on his lap. And I sat on Ozzy's lap and took a picture with him. It was the coolest thing. Because it really brought out his humanity, like, and in that moment really solidified Ozzy as a human for me. And it's kind of, I guess, influenced my way I feel about celebrities. Is they're just people at the end of the day. And if you treat them that way, I think rather than having some sort of mystique about them, it makes all, and this is, I guess, going off a little bit, but obviously celebrities can be in tabloids for misgivings and mess ups and all of that stuff. And Ozzy has definitely had his fair share of those. But at the end of the day, he's just someone living under a microscope. And it was just really cool to get to be a part of his humanity. And hopefully, the way my dad describes it, maybe Ozzy doesn't have this thought, but at least it's something that we hold on to.
Gazing through the window at the world outside, wondering will Mother Earth survive, hoping that mankind will stop abusing her sometime. I'm just a
behind the Zakk Wylde picture is there is a rock or metal aligned photographer. His name is Mark Weiss. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he's a local New Jersey guy, and he was having a birthday party, and I had done some yard work and work around his house for I don't know, maybe a year or two before then, and he asked me to do valet parking. And so I helped Zakk Wylde park his car, and also Jerry Gaskill from King's X. Just as a side note, I drove Jerry to his car because he had to leave to go let his dogs out. So we had a conversation about his dogs, and he was just super cool, super down to earth, awesome guy. I have a picture with him somewhere as well.
Yeah.
But to Zach Wild, huge influence on me. It felt very surreal meeting him, like just seeing him walk around a party.
Yeah.
This goes back to he's a human at the end of the day, but
Right. Yeah.
he's like a guitar god to me. So it was such a weird thing to be working at a party that he was just hanging out at. Um,
Yeah.
but the guy Mark, he's like I said, he's a photographer, so he took a picture of me and Zach together, and I spoke to him a little bit, and super nice guy. He was there with his wife and youngest son, I believe.
Yeah. I saw that photo and I was like, I gotta ask you. So thank you for sharing that. That's cool.
Yeah, of course. I almost felt bad taking a picture because I wanted to just let him walk around.
I get what you mean. Yeah, it's cool that you have that souvenir from that moment. Not so much that I got a picture with Zach Wild. It's more like you have this great story. And by the way, I do have a photo with it as well. That was taken by a guy who is a well-known photographer. Like the story is what makes it cool, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Mickey, thanks so much for taking the time to chat with me again. I've already said that, but I really appreciate it. I appreciate the time that you spend on all the music that you do, and you call yourself like a perfectionist, I guess. But what I see is a guy who really cares about what he's doing and does it really well because of that. I think actually you spend a lot of time on it and a lot of energy. So thank you for that. And the same thing with this chat. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and again, I want to echo the sentiments. I appreciate you and your time and your attention to detail. You're fantastic. So thank you.
Oh, that's awesome. I appreciate that. Thank you. All right, man. I look forward to talking again.
If you have any questions, always feel free to reach out.
Cool. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, man. Have a good day. All right. Take care.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. Good night.